Hi, this is Les Levine, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason in Ohio sports. After a lull in the action, last week was pretty active for our local teams with the NFL draft, the Cavaliers with their ongoing search for a head coach, with neither side knowing whether they'll have Zion Williamson or not until 2 weeks from tonight. And the Indians split their four-game series with the Houston Astros. That takes up three area teams, but this week we'll get our action from our adopted team and our adopted sport, the Columbus Blue Jackets of the NHL. The Blue Jackets will host their first ever second-round game tonight against one of the storied franchises in the game, the Boston Bruins, with the series tied at 1 game apiece. If you don't know offsides from icing the puck, I suggest you watch about 10 minutes of tonight's game, just one half of one period. If you're not converted into a hockey fan by that time, I suggest you watch soccer or chess to get your daily sporting excitement. Bud Shaw is here tonight. More sports and Les Levine is on the air. From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Les Levine, it's a Tuesday night. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to More Sports and Les Levine into our 23rd consecutive year. And as always, seen exclusively on cleveland.com, also seen, well, maybe not exclusively, but the exclusive or elusive Bud Shaw.
I like that, Les. Thank you.
From WKYC.com.
Good to be here.
Good to have you with us. You were out on... what were you out on? Vacation time?
Yeah, I got away for a little
Personal
while, but
business?
I was back for the draft and spent both Thursday and Friday night there for WKYC. And Thursday was not interesting at all, I got to say. Kept thinking they were going to do something, but in retrospect,
they
it
went
was
back
best
to what
that
they usually do, nothing.
Yeah, and in this case, I think it was because the draft kind of fell to them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but don't you think he was itching to, John Dorsey was itching to do something?
But he was smart, I think, in seeing that the first cornerback was taken way late in the draft, 26 or 7 or something. So he knew that there was going to be a lot of those guys that he probably liked were going to be available in the second round. And when he did make a move up, he made it judiciously, only like 3 picks. So only had to give up a fifth to do so.
What do you think the picking in the 5th round of a kicker? What do you think about that?
I don't think much of it.
No, nor do I.
But in this town right now, you're not allowed to say anything about John Dorsey's choices without hearing from
who says that? They say that?
Oh, I mean, the fans that you hear from when you question something like that. Even a guy like Dustin Fox, who you know real well, had said the same thing on Twitter, that he wasn't a fan of taking it. And he got attacked. A couple people saying, you know, what do you know? You only made, 10 tackles in your NFL career.
That's 10 more.
He was an NFL player drafted in the 3rd round. I think he probably has a pretty solid opinion about most things.
That's true, but I think guys like us would have a pretty good idea that that's not done very often.
I'm glad you say that, because this brings me to one of my pet peeves.
Me?
This is Baker Mayfield getting on social media and saying, oh, all these draft analysts, they all want to tell you what a guy can't do, and most of them aren't athletic enough to play chess. Wait a second. You tell me you can't review a movie unless you're a movie producer or a director? No. If you watch this stuff long enough, and in some cases, in many cases, these guys are studying film, you can have an opinion. And that's what the draft is about, to decide what guys do well and what they don't do quite so well, because that's how you slot these players. That's how NFL teams do it. But they're allowed to? Come on.
I need you to do something for me.
Settle down?
No, no. In fact, perk it up a little bit. When we get to the portion of the show which involves How Come Quickies, I want you to remember what you just said.
Okay.
And you'll make it, and you'll probably say, well, when did Les have time to change that How Come Quickie?
Wait
till you see that. Well, all right, you also get Freddie Kitchens in his first time as a head coach is also trying to set up the divide between the media and the front office and the coaching staff. There's no divide.
No, and if somebody can show me a situation last year where the media, the Cleveland media, oh boy, they're so tough.
Yeah.
Tried to pit players against coaches against players. they were a bad team for 2 years. And if they had done what they did in New York or Boston or Chicago at 1-31,
right.
There would have been a lot more criticism than there was even here. So I thought they got a fair amount of criticism last year for some things that didn't go quite right.
Right.
And then think they got a lot of accolades for turning that season around.
And here's the other thing. Somebody like Baker, who, by the way, I'm all for him. I think we've waited a lot of years. We've waited 20 years to get this guy with the franchise coming back. And that's exactly my point. He didn't live through those 20 years like we have and doesn't understand at this point where all this comes from. Number one, you're right, 1-31, and the media was as kind as you can be in a circumstance like that. But if you're getting picked on, you have to understand where that's coming from.
Well, if you ask Joe Thomas about his time here, he'll say he's called it the fairest media in the country.
Right.
And I think that comes from, not that he played elsewhere. Obviously, he wasn't in New York or Philly or anything.
But he's got friends.
But that comes from a context where a framework of him knowing just how bad the organization was for 20 years.
Right.
Now it looks like they're going to be good. And I can't think of a more I don't want to say supportive. It's not the right word. But if you talk to the stuff that's being written right now, nobody's questioning in the media Freddie Kitchens' credentials. He was named head coach after being a running backs coach for most of last season. And nobody's questioning any of that. So nobody's questioning Baker Mayfield's credentials. So I don't understand where he's sort of pitting the team against the media already, because people are asking what I think are fair questions about, well, why isn't Odell Beckham here? Nobody's saying that he isn't in shape. Nobody's saying that he can't get ready for the season.
And Jarvis Landry should be here too, by the way.
What's that?
Jarvis Landry should be here
also.
Well,
they're just saying, like, what's the reason not to be here? Tell me what the reason is not to be here. Last time it was because he had stuff going on in Europe. Well, what is it now? It's that he doesn't want to be here because it's voluntary, and that's okay. But at the same hand, Freddie Kitchens is extolling Baker Mayfield for taking control during these April workouts.
Well, there's certain people he needs to take control over, but they're not here to be taken control.
Well, but how about if Baker Mayfield said, you know what, they are voluntary, and I don't really think I need to be there. That wouldn't be good, would it?
No.
Okay, so nobody's saying that Odell Beckham's a bad guy or can't get ready for the season, but he's the one who has railed on social media about what he thought was misrepresentation of his character in New York.
Right.
So what better way to show what kind of a teammate you are than to come for one of the first two
Very
get-togethers?
simple.
That's all.
You want to dispel the image of you, then show up and play and get your teammates to say how great, he's even better than I thought he was.
I have more to say on the draft, too.
Well, very good. You get to do that with your opening comment. To start things off with an opening comment, here is Bud Shaw.
This is going to be ad-lib, but I'll see what I can do with it.
Okay.
Some draftniks are giving the Browns an A for their work in the NFL draft, and some are giving them a C-, probably more A's, though. Unless you spend hours a day watching tape, you probably don't have as much time or expertise invested as most NFL teams do. That seems rather obvious. So the only way grades are a reasonable measure of how well a team did in the draft is to assess if the picks match the needs. In the Browns' case, it appears they did, secondary and linebacker being two of those major needs. And the Browns spent a majority of their picks there. They also picked a kicker in the 5th round, which seems to me unnecessary at worst and premature at best. Despite popular opinion, John Dorsey can do no wrong, but there's hardly enough evidence of it in his first 2 drafts to criticize him for a kicker, or say Chad Thomas last year. The Browns draft was logical and well considered for the most part, and we haven't been able to say that in a lot of years. I'd go down the list, but we only have an hour. No, I think his drafts have made sense, but I think it's fair to say, did you have to take a kicker in the 5th round?
And also, if there's, let's say, 8 to 10 picks, you don't expect to hit on all 8 to 10, right?
No, and that's why I think like Chad Thomas, does that look like a good pick right now?
No.
It's based on last year, it didn't. The new starting guard, you know who I'm talking about, Austin Corbett.
Yeah.
Probably going to be a good pick.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
If he's a starter and he plays well, that'll look like another good pick, but we don't know yet on that pick. So Dorsey made mistakes in Kansas City. He'll make mistakes here. But it's okay to talk about them without being,
Yeah, the thing on the kicker, though, first of all, there's nothing, it's not like it's Sebastian Janikowski, using a current reference because he just retired yesterday, but it's not like his stats jump off the map at you and say you got to pick this guy if he's available. So the problem is, since he's your pick, number 5, you almost have to keep him.
Absolutely.
Right?
See, when John Dorsey has done a couple radio interviews in the last few days, and he keeps saying, hey, all we are doing at that position is driving competition.
No.
You could do that with free agents, good free agent kickers.
Because if you cut him and he's a 5th rounder, that'll be on your permanent record.
Right. So you're drafting him with the idea he's going to be your kicker,
sure.
And certainly John Dorsey doesn't want to come out and diminish or already prematurely cut Greg Josephson.
Right.
But clearly
That's
this guy's
plan.
going to be the kicker if he's any good at all in camp.
I think he was 4 for 9 from over 40 yards. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think his long has been, for his career, was 51. His long last year was 42. They say that they worked him out at all kinds of different distances, and the sound the ball makes off his foot is like, a PGA Tour pro teeing off. I'm saying that, not them.
Well, wait a minute. He's a kicker. He's not a long driver.
No, but we are led to believe that they worked him out, that they saw him kick from 50 yards. Now, it's easier doing that.
Can he do it with
practice.
70,000 people in this?
And with the wind blowing on the lakefront, we'll find out.
216-575-0403 is the number to call. You can also email us during the show, and that would be at reallesslevine@gmail.com. Bud Shaw here from WKYC.com, and we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll preview the 2019 defense for the Browns, and also you can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/More Sports and Les Levine, with new content posted each and every day. Back in a moment, More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
But mark this down, April 30th. This is absolutely the worst birthday date in the history of birthday dates. How about that? Scotch Tape was born in 1947. That was the best athlete of this bunch. We got Phil Scrap Iron Garner. Then you have the good Isaiah Thomas, Al Toon, Louis Scola, and Brandon Bass. Can you think of a worse birthday date?
I think you made up about 4 of those names.
Well, the only real one is Scotch Tape. The others I made up. And we had to differentiate the good Isaiah Thomas from the bad one.
Yes.
Still makes it a horrible day. Unbelievable. 216-575-0403. Bud Shaw is with us. I missed you last week.
Yeah, I missed you too, Les, believe it or not.
Thanks,
Do you believe it?
Yeah.
You are Les, right? Yeah, I miss you a
I'm
lot.
less than others. All right, so the defense I want to take a look at and just say what comes to mind, either as a unit or as a player. Anybody there between Myles Garrett, Chris Smith, Olivier Vernon, Chad Thomas, and Anthony Zettel? Anything pop out at you?
Well, I mean, there's a rumor out there that Dorsey might be looking at Gerald McCoy.
Right.
He's 31 years old.
Possibly Duke Johnson involved.
Made 6 Pro Bowls. Had 6 sacks last year as an interior guy. So I think you can look at that and still and think that, you know, maybe they're still going to do something else there. Who knows?
Let's take a look at defensive tackles. And there you see Sheldon Richardson, who recently signed, Larry Ogunjobi, Trayvon Coley, Brian Price, Devereaux Lawrence, and Carl Davis. Not household names yet.
No, I like Ogunjobi. I mean, he's if you're talking Sashi Brown's regime, he still gets credited. Les?
Credited.
Credited for that pick. So that's a good one.
Well, you got to be good if you survive that.
Sheldon Richardson, I think, is, you know, maybe a guy that's on the other side of his prime a little bit, but he's still only, I think, 29.
Joe
right?
Schobert, Jannard Avery, Sione Takitaki, as well as Xavier Woodson Luster, Christian Kirksey, Mac Wilson, Adarius Taylor, and Ray Armstrong.
I think based on what they did in acquiring Taki and Wilson, that you're going to see Schobert probably move on.
What if Taki's parents named him Ray? It would be Ray Taki.
Yeah, thank goodness.
From Walla Walla, Washington.
They didn't do that.
All right, let's move on. See what we have. Cornerbacks, Denzel Ward, T.J. Carey, as well as Greedy Williams, one of the great names, Terrence Mitchell, and Tavere Thomas.
Yeah, the Greedy Williams pick, I think, is really interesting because he was ranked pretty high at the beginning of the draft process. And ended up being the 7th cornerback taken, Les. And you don't know whether it's because he doesn't play quite as physical as he needs to, he has some tackling issues, or if it's because he didn't work out and he didn't visit other teams. And sometimes the NFL guys look at that and say, I'm not taking a chance on somebody I don't know well.
How about on Taki? And I mean, the name stands out. But when you keep hearing how John Dorsey rates these guys and how they scout them, there was no contact between the two sides at all, as far as I know. Doesn't that seem unlikely? Yeah,
it does seem unlikely. You'd like to trust that Dorsey played that position as a player in the NFL, right, and that he would have a feel for what makes a good linebacker. Then again, we have John Elway still trying to find a quarterback in Denver.
True.
So
safeties on this roster: Demarius Randall, as well as Eric Murray. Morgan Burnett, sounds like a stock firm, doesn't Morgan Burnett? I've invested my funds in Morgan Burnett. Sheldrick Redwine and Jermaine Whitehead.
Yeah, I didn't really pretend to know a lot about Sheldrick Redwine before they got him, but he's another guy that's kind of a bigger, corner that should, or safety that should help.
What do you make of Mac Wilson and that?
I don't know. I mean, again, I'm only repeating things that I read about these guys because I didn't watch any tape on Mac Wilson or any of these other guys.
No.
The Pro Football Focus group doesn't seem as impressed with him. He was one of these guys. In other words, his production hasn't matched his talent. He was a 5-star recruit, I believe, coming out of high school. I guess if you look at it and say, would you take a 5-star talent in the 5th round of any NFL draft, you would probably say yeah.
He didn't play very well in those 3-4 years.
He was not as productive, certainly, as Taki was.
All right, when we come back, we'll find out what you think. We have to ask the mandatory question now that the draft is over. How are the Browns going to do in 2019? Northfield Park, they got a big event coming up. I believe it's called the Kentucky Derby. That's this Saturday, and doors will open at 9:30 a.m. First Churchill Downs post time is 10:30. And Kentucky Derby handicapping seminar hosted by our friend the Railbird, Bob Roberts. That'll be at 11 o'clock outside the apron. Prize drawings, enter for a chance to win $100 wagers on the Kentucky Derby and much, much more. Kentucky Derby hat contest, and they've got $3.50 beer specials, among other things, sponsored by Labatt and Miller Lite. And $8.50 mint juleps in a Kentucky Derby souvenir glass. Live racing at 6. Lady Luck's Clubhouse Buffet at $19.95. Buffet served starting at 5:30. We'll come on back in a moment with Bud Shaw And we'll find out what I was talking about with that How Come Quickie when we get back exclusively on cleveland.com.
When my dad started Nature Stone right here in Northeast Ohio, he created a solution for age-old concrete problems. Unevenness, cracking, pitting, and more. Nature Stone solves all of these problems in garages, basements, and outdoor spaces. Nature Stone is beautiful, environmentally friendly, and always affordable. Plus, Nature Stone is backed by Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
Get Nature Stone installed in your home by the end of April and get up to half off. Schedule your free in-home estimate easily online today.
It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
All right, here we go, Bud. This is exactly what you were alluding to. How come, by definition, a movie critic cannot say anything nice about a movie?
How about that, Les?
So we went back and we edited that out. That's pretty much what you said. You got a critique.
No, what I was saying is you don't have to be a director or a producer to know whether you like a movie, just like you can watch players and know whether they do something well or don't do something well. For Baker Mayfield to say, the guys who are making these judgments aren't athletic enough to play chess. It's one of those old
bromides
saws that these guys bring out all the time. Well, you never played the game. How would you know? Well, come on. Do you think?
I've heard a lot of players over the years.
Yeah, Mike Fratello never played the game at the NBA level. He was a pretty good coach.
Right, but also I've heard guys, players of all sports, attempt to do what we do and have no clue how to do it.
Yeah,
so,
but they don't shy away from taking that opportunity to do it. They think they can do it.
Exactly. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Bud Shaw with us. All right, do you believe that Las Vegas knows more than we do about how teams will do and players will do?
I think they know more about what people's thoughts are about those
and that's
teams.
how they place the money down. All right, here you go. The Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. We'll take a look at that. Here's what they're thinking as far as the post-draft AFC North odds. Cleveland at 7-5. Pittsburgh at 3-2, Baltimore at 3-1, and Cincinnati at 20-1. Is that how you would handicap it if you were doing that?
Yeah, I might. I guess I don't have a big argument there. I still think those three teams at the top, or any one of them, could still win the division.
Yeah, I think I would make them closer together than that, than making an outright favorite on that. All right, the post-draft Super Bowl odds. The Westgate Las Vegas Superbook tells us that Kansas City and New England tied at 6-1. The Rams and New Orleans in the National at 8-1. And then it's Indianapolis 10-1, and Chicago, Green Bay, Philadelphia 14-1. The Browns at 16-1, and it's not on there, but they've got Pittsburgh at 20-1 in the 11th spot.
I thought Pittsburgh had a good draft.
Yeah,
I think rumors of their demise are premature.
Yeah, we look at what the outside looks like: quarterback, wide receiver, running back. But there's other positions, obviously, that.
Yeah, and they found a guy who they think can replace Ryan Shazier, whether he can or not. And they were bold about moving up from the 20th pick to the 10th pick. They got the kid from Cleveland, Justin Lane, who was wearing brown socks and took them off immediately, put his Steeler. The bathroom at that family home was painted in Browns colors.
It was an
and
homage
it's
to
already
Cleveland.
been changed to Steelers colors.
All right, so the Browns started playing in 1946.
That's what people tell me, Les. I wasn't around then.
Unfortunately, I was, or fortunately, I was. Well, no, I wasn't. No, I missed it, but not just a bit.
Okay.
However, that's 78 seasons. That's a lot of players that have come through.
Sure.
Just scribbling down before, I just did this with the defense. There are 16 players on the defense right now with first names that Cleveland Browns teams have never had before.
That's hard to believe.
Well, all right. Do you remember anybody else? You got Demarius Randall. Think of anybody else?
No.
How about Sheldrick Richardson?
I'm pretty sure there hasn't been a Sheldrick.
Trayvon Coley.
Probably not.
All right. Jannard Avery.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This one I'm not sure of. Sione Taki.
Well, there have been several Takis, but none named Sione.
Xavier Woodson. I don't believe there's been a Xavier. Christian Kirksey. Adarius Taylor. How about this one? Ray Armstrong. We've had Ray, but we've never had Ray.
Yeah, you can almost double any name and say that that's never been the case.
How about Denzel Ward? Not named after any Browns player. Grady Williams.
Yeah, and I think his Andres is his. It's Andraez, I think is his real first name. Is that
Didn't know
right?
that.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
These are things you learn less when you sit in Berea for 8 hours over 2 nights.
So you've never heard of Javier
Julian Tavares? Yes, I have.
Tavares. Oh, Julian or Julian. All right, Myles Garrett. There's never been a Myles besides Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
Olivier Vernon.
And with that information,
yeah,
what conclusion can we draw?
That I had 2 minutes to go to the next commercial,
that you had 8 hours over the weekend to come up with something.
Right. It shows I did my homework and it worked because it helped me fill the time. Next year, the draft is not going to be here, right? It's already set for somewhere.
I don't know if it's set for somewhere. I don't believe.
Do you
it's
want it here?
I see fans having a great time at it. I don't understand it. I don't understand why people would give 2 or 3 days to it, especially by the third day when you don't really. Most people that are cheering for their team don't really know the names of the players that get picked.
But one good thing about it, though, if they come to Cleveland, they'll come from all over the country, but they'll come from neighboring places like Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and Detroit and Indianapolis. So for the economy, that would be
absolutely
a good thing.
Be great.
I wonder if the fact that if it comes here, it would have to be split between Canton and Cleveland. I wonder if that's a good selling point or a bad selling point.
Well, I'm sure the hotel business in Cleveland would benefit most, even if the people were driving down to Canton every day.
Yeah. All right, we have a Facebook question of the day, which we will get to right now. Now that the draft is over, what is your prediction for the Browns in 2019? But it's obligatory to update this at all times throughout the season.
Yes.
So your last prediction about this team was what?
I think I had them at 10-6. And
changing it on the draft?
Today I can say without a doubt that I have them at 10-6.
So it did nothing for your
hopes.
Well,
I think it was that kind of draft where they were looking to fill depth positions. They may come out of it. They will come out of it with a new starting corner if he's as good as we think, and maybe one of those linebackers will start. But I don't think it's not anywhere near like last year's draft when it was 4 players taken in the top 35.
The Indians begin a 2-game series in Miami tonight, and I think Trevor Bauer will strike out 100 people because he gets to go up against pitchers tonight.
Yeah, that'll be
in Miami.
Good.
Cleveland with a 2-game series tonight and tomorrow. Angelo Costanzo says he says 10-6 and a wild card
He's
slot.
thinking just like I am, Angelo is.
Dennis Davis, 9-7 wild card advanced to the AFC Championship game.
Wow.
Gerard Morelli, they'll be better than they've been over 20 years. Now, I'm looking for emailers here responding from names that we haven't had before, just like the Browns on defense. Glenn Berger, 9-7. I think they have a real good chance to make the playoffs. They still need to prove they can beat the real good teams in the league. Can't wait to see how they do. And Gary Holloway, I think that's a new name. At least the first round of the playoffs, a 10-6 record.
Okay. Well, 10-6 would give them their best record since
they were 10-6. No,
since they were 10-6
in the Joe Thomas rookie year,
and didn't make the playoffs.
That's correct.
Yep.
Because they lost to the wrong team.
Yeah. I agree with the next to last one is that, and I've mentioned this a few times, and I'm called a naysayer by mentioning this, but even in turning that season around and going 5-3, they didn't beat a team with a winning record.
Right.
That doesn't mean they can't. They're
No,
going to have Beckham. They're going to, they're going to be pretty good. Offensively, they're going to be very good. So I think that it's reasonable to think that they can win anywhere from 9 to 10 and maybe even 11 games. But the idea that suddenly they go to 14-2
and a Super Bowl win.
A Super Bowl is a lot, despite what Greedy Williams says. He is greedy, by the way.
Exactly. All right, the Indians begin that series in Miami. We'll talk about that when we get back. You can also go to our voicemail of Truth and Reason. You can call us anytime, 216-200-6650. Leave us a message. I do want to point out, although we can absorb longer messages, you have a better chance of getting it on if you keep it as short as you can. We'd appreciate that. 216-200-6650, the number to call. The voicemail of Truth and Reason. More sports and Les Levine continues in a moment with Bud Shaw exclusively on cleveland.com.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family cool this summer,
let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at 440-449-HEAT.
This date in sports history, April 30th, 1946, Cleveland Indian right-hander Bob Feller strikes out 11 New York Yankees en route to his second of 3 no-hitters. The Tribe wins 1-0 at the Yankee Stadium.
They didn't have a chance against my curveball. I could just hear him right now.
I didn't even want to strike him out with a fastball.
Nah.
That's too easy. Do you remember Sam McDowell for the Indians?
I do.
He used to think that you got more points if you struck out a guy on a changeup rather than a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. They had a player, Dick Trzaskowski, you might have remembered.
Remember that name, yeah.
And he was a little guy, and he struck him out every time, so he said, I think I'll throw him a changeup curve. Sam McDowell should never throw a changeup curve to Dick Trzaskowski.
Wasn't Bob Dolgan credited with giving Sam McDowell his nickname?
He was not credited. He actually did it.
He actually did it.
It's one of the great moments in Les Levine sports history.
And there have been a few.
There have been a couple. 216-575-0403. All right, the Indians send Trevor Bauer to the mound. Sandy Alcantara will go for Miami. Here you see the matchup. There's some good news, which we'll get to after this, involving Cleveland pitcher. We'll just leave it at that. Trevor Bauer, 3-1 with a 1.99 ERA. Alcantara with that record. You see it right there. And 4.50 ERA. Game 2 is tomorrow. Corey Kluber, 2-2 on the season, 581 run average, and Caleb Smith goes with a 2-0 record, 2.17 ERA. What were the sound effects for?
5.81 ERA.
Yeah.
For Corey Kluber. What do you mean? Yeah, that's nothing.
I was told stats don't mean anything anymore. All right,
that means you're giving up a lot more runs than you used to.
Yeah, I guess it does. Bauer's 1.99 ERA, 4th among AL starters. Where's the 5-point-whatever for Kluber? Opponents are batting .287 against Kluber. Uh-oh, that's not good. You didn't tell me that part.
That stat you care about.
That stat I care about. Jose Ramirez starting to hit a little bit, 7 for 22 in his last 6 games, hitting .318. That doesn't matter either, by the way. Strikeouts and home runs apparently are what matter. 4 RBIs, 3 stolen bases in the last 6 games. All right, you've got some Mike Clevenger news.
I forget who reported it now, but he apparently threw from 60 feet today, which is not the same as...
And supposedly, according to Terry Francona, he wasn't supposed to pick up a ball for 2 months.
Yeah, so threw out of the windup. They tried to keep him to about 60% velocity-wise, and he was quoted earlier today, Les, saying that he's going to come back a bigger and stronger horse. My only concern with that is that I think, again, totally unfounded. I'm not a biomechanics,
You're not?
Physical therapist. I know I look like I could be.
I would have bet $1 million.
Professorial, but you wonder if in suddenly people writing about his increased velocity this year and Bauer helping him out with it. You know, maybe increased velocity in April on cold nights isn't the greatest thing in the world. I don't know. I hope he doesn't come back looking to, caring whether his velocity is back up where it was when he left.
So if he's coming back stronger than a horse, will his mane be longer than it is right now?
It could be, yes. Yes.
That's very good. If you had to handicap it, no. That's
Here we
funny.
Go. We
that
keep
is
going,
funny.
Yeah.
Okay, I say nay to that. But if you were going to handicap it, do you think he starts for the Indians this year, sometime this year?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Based on what? Based on that report?
Yeah, but I mean, we're in May, so I mean, would you think that he's not going to?
I have no reason to even suggest otherwise, but that seems like a tough one to come back from.
Well, it's certainly going to take him a while to get, back up to being stretched out again through the way they do it through training camp or spring training. But yeah, I think he's a young enough guy and resilient enough that he'll be back starting for him.
All right. By the way, and this is not to continue my being a homer for the Dolan family.
You tell the audience that, sir.
I'm just wondering, everybody says the only reason people think the Indians will win is because they're in a horrible division. What do they make of playing the Houston Astros? What do they think of playing them head-to-head over a 4-game series? I know they should have won all 4, but they didn't. But still 2-2 in a split like that. And listening to the Houston players and manager, Hinch, they don't want any part. They want a part of their Indians lineup. They don't want any part of the pitching starting pitching
it's
staff.
It's a good baseball team, and if you don't see that, then I'm not sure what you're looking at. And I say that as the team that we're now looking at, that with Lindor in the lineup, with Carlos Gonzalez here.
I love that name.
Certainly Kipnis is not off to the kind of start you would hope. He's always been a slow starter, I think. Somebody will tell me I'm wrong. But I still think that they're good enough to win the division, and I say comfortably, and I think that's between 5 and 10 games.
Right, they're 2.5 behind right now.
Yeah. And then I think, this was a team that was good enough to be in a 7th game of a World Series with the Cubs. It was good enough a year later to be up 2-0 on the Yankees. So it's not like they're just a bad team right now that can't hit its way out of a wet paper bag. I mean, they need to improve offensively. There's still time to do it, and there's a trade deadline coming up.
Doesn't that statement about the Cubs in 16 seem like an awful long time ago?
Yeah, and I realized it was a different roster then, but
not that much.
But what can you say? I mean, if we did a speaking engagement,
lucrative speaking engagement,
and we were both a little bit not amazed, but we were a little taken aback at the kind of not vitriol, but
vitriol.
It was people
guys
who thought that the media in this town just was letting this baseball team off scot-free and that they weren't any good. And I just think that's just not true. I mean, I know they lost the last 2, 15 and 12 missing players they've been missing is not great, but it's probably better than you might think they would do.
When we get back, we'll listen to what somebody had to say on the voicemail of Truth and Reason. When you think of the Sokolowskis, you think of an awful lot of things. Do you think of wine tasting?
No.
Well, you should.
But I'm going to start now.
June 2nd.
Okay.
You're a wine connoisseur.
I love wine, yeah.
And you love Sokolowskis.
It's a great mix.
All I have to do is say wine tasting Sokolowskis June 2nd.
Okay, I'm there.
Be there.
I'm there.
Check it out online at sokolowskis.com. You'll find out more about it. Should be a great time at Sokolowski's University Inn, located in Tremont, 5 minutes out of downtown. Take the Abbey Avenue exit. That's where you're going to find it, where it was back in 1923, making Sokolowski's the oldest owned and operated restaurant in all of northeastern Ohio. Bud and I return in a moment, exclusively on cleveland.com.
The concrete in your garage is uneven, cracked, pitted, and just plain ugly. Transform your garage into a welcoming entryway with Naturestone flooring. Naturestone corrects uneven concrete so you don't have to worry about tripping or slipping. Plus, Naturestone is backed by Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
Get Naturestone installed in your home by the end of April and get up to half off. Schedule your free in-home estimate easily online today.
It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Naturestone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
All right, here you go. This date in Les Levine history. 1968, the Fraternity House bookie makes the following Kentucky Derby offer. Bet with him and receive a hot dog, a program, and a small Sprite.
Not a small beer?
With that crowd, no.
Wow.
No,
You guys were pretty straight-laced.
There were some other things that might have been involved, if I remember. Not me. I mean,
but
I would be the first to admit it.
Yeah.
So we're going to have the self-proclaimed voicemail of truth and reason in a minute, and it deals with what we are going to talk about, which we'll get to. You talk about the Indians lineup. Tyler Naquin, who I believe will. Well, why don't we go to the voice of truth, voice of email and all that other stuff? Can we do that right now?
The voicemail of truth and reason.
Of truth and reason. Here's what we got.
Hey Les, this is Rob from Venture. I'm a big fan of the show. I think it's time that we let Naquin alone. The guy's battled a bunch of injuries. He's not a Hall of Famer, but I think you'd even have to agree he's actually a decent ball player. So that's my request. While we're at it, Casey Blake wasn't too bad either. I'm out.
All right. First of all, the only right thing about that is the case that Tyler Naquin is not a Hall of Famer. Will we all agree on that?
Right about that. I didn't hear the very end of it.
He thinks Casey Blake was pretty good, too. Let me just remind you, I was reminded of Casey Blake, and I had totally forgotten this. You know, my favorite, if I bring up the name Joel Skinner, what do you think of?
I think of you waving home Lofton at third
Kenny
base.
Lofton with Manny Ramirez in left field getting the ball off the corner in Fenway Park. What I forgot about that.
I think of you going like this and Skinner going like this.
Right. Well, so here's the thing. You know what ticked me off even more than that? I totally forgot about that.
No, I can't imagine anything.
They stopped Lofton at third, putting first and third with one out. And here comes Casey Blake downtroddenly coming up to the plate. He already knew what he was about to do.
Well, at least he doesn't swing at the first pitch.
Oh, that's not true. He did, and guess what happened?
Did he ground it to short?
It was, to quote Tom Hamilton, a double play ball to short on the first pitch. I forgot that's what made me clinch it. That he was such a. Excuse me. I'll preface it by saying he was really a nice man.
He was.
Casey.
And if it's any consolation to the caller, in the same situation, Naquin would hit a double play ground ball to second instead of short.
Right, exactly. We'll look at Naquin's averages just to prove that he's not going to the Hall of Fame, and there it is right now. And 237 batting average. Actually, if you looked at this and you extrapolated over the year, you'd say, yeah, it's okay.
Well, here's what I would say if I were that caller. Hey, 455 in the last 4 games. You just read a Jose Ramirez stat last 6 games, so you got to give him at least the last 4 games. Right? He's on a hot streak.
One home run.
You're trying to get him out of town.
For a corner outfielder. There's only one thing to do at a time like this. We'll say hi to BP in Pepper Pike. BP, how are you tonight?
Hey, Les and Bud, how you guys doing?
We're doing well. What's up?
Good, good. No, I just wanted to talk about the Browns, and I've heard a lot of talk on the radio. Different guys might be on the chopping block, and it does bother me. I mean, just when I'm happy with the roster, I'm happy with what Dorsey's doing. I mean, I don't want to see Joe Schobert go. I don't want to see Larry Oakley go. I think it gets to a point where there's almost too much tinkering with the roster and getting rid of the old regime guys. I'm not happy about that. What do you think?
Well, I think, I'll just say quickly, then Bud, you just jump in. I think you want to get rid of guys who were in the previous regime, but that's ridiculous to think that not one of them can play some football.
Well,
at this point.
I think in the case of Schobert, the way it's been explained to me, BP, is that they're going to have to make a decision contract-wise to give him, after this season, to give him a significant amount of money to keep him. And they're looking at stats that suggest, Pro Football Focus stats that suggest he had more missed tackles than any other linebacker in the league. Now, I would argue that it's like the shortstop with no range, right? He doesn't get errors because he can't get the balls. So I liked the way Schobert played for the most part last year. I think they felt after that Baltimore game that they needed some improvement there. And certainly, we already saw Dorsey was not a Jamie Collins fan. He thinks he can upgrade with better tackling than Joe Schobert gives him. But I like Schobert, and I'm with you. I would like to see them keep him around.
Yeah, I mean, same thing with Ogunjobi. He was a 3rd-round pick. Schobert a 4th-round pick. But these guys have proven to be pretty good and formidable, and they're also young. I mean, we're supposed to be so far under the salary cap. I don't want to start purging this team before they even win one game under Freddie Kitchens. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I think. I think they do though have to look at the next couple years with contracts. They're going to have to pay Myles Garrett. Eventually, they're going to have to pay Baker Mayfield a ton of money. So I think the knock on Dorsey coming out of Kansas City wasn't that he wasn't a good talent evaluator or even that he took chances on guys with character issues, although he did. It was that he didn't manage the cap very well. So maybe he's a little more attentive to that this time around, and he's looking ahead to see, is Joe Schobert worth what you're going to need to pay him a year from now? If not, and you have the draft picks and they're as good as Schobert or better or almost as good, he's looking for those positions where he can do that and save some money.
BP, it's not like when we were kids and we traded football and baseball cards, just value for value. Obviously, there's money issues, cap issues you got to look at and take care of that before you get into pairing that the roster in some cases.
BP, I've got to ask, you did not mention Kirksey. Do you feel differently about him?
No, I like him too. I mean, I don't like to see a huge, you can't have, again, this is Freddie Kitchens' first year as coach. Greg Williams was a very good coach last year. I think people are underestimating the job he did here.
As a head coach, you mean?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean when he took over as head coach?
Yeah. I mean, the guy was a great motivator. He was a great sort of overachiever. He's, a good football man. And, I don't want to get rid of all, we haven't won one game under Freddie Kitchens. I don't want to get rid of all these defensive holdover guys. They're all pretty good in my book. And, start all over with a bunch of, 5th-round draft picks and, guys from Tampa Bay. And, again, I don't think they should overthink this. That's my point.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, sometimes
and I want to see what this team does. This schedule, we all knew what the schedule was going to be, but the way the schedule lays out, the first 8 games are going to be very difficult. In the last 8 games, I think that's when the Browns are going to go on their real run.
I agree.
When the schedule lightens up.
I agree if they can hold off from injuries, and everybody gets injuries. But you're right. First 10 games or so, and then then you get the little infusion of talent out of the backfield, and in Kareem Hunt. They got to be at least 5-3, I would think, at that point after 8 games, right?
Yeah, I think. They played the Titans and Jets in 2 of the first 3 games, so that there's a chance there to get off to a better start than they have in a while.
The dreaded schedule.
But then
game.
it does get difficult. And then to your point, BP, at the end of the year, I think they have 5 of their last 7 or something at home.
You know, they play the Phoenix Cardinals or Arizona Cardinals or whatever they're called.
Bengals twice, you know, so there is certainly a chance to finish strong, but they can't screw it up early.
The Dolphins and the Bills are in there at the end, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it would have been nice if those teams were sprinkled there in the beginning, too, to sort of, you know, even out the schedule.
Nothing you can do about that. BP, I'll be on 92.3 The Fan Thursday from 10 until 2 in with Andy.
You got it. Have a great week, guys.
Thank you.
It's radio by appointment.
There you go.
You got to call in to sign up. No, that's not true.
Well, you didn't sound desperate, like you weren't begging him to call.
No.
You were just letting him know that you're going to be there.
Oh, like it's tough to get calls on that station. Let's take a break. We'll come on back. Coming up on Saturday, it's the big one, the Kentucky Derby. That's Saturday, and doors open early at 9:30 p.m. at Northfield Park. Churchill Downs' first post time is 10:30. A handicapping seminar put on by Bob Railbird Roberts. That'll be at 11 a.m. outside the apron. Donut and coffee specials for $1 beginning at 9:30 while supplies last. Prize drawings, you can enter to win $100 win wagers on the Kentucky Derby, gift cards and sporting event tickets, concert tickets, and much, much more. Grand prize, you could win up to $2,500 in cash. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. Bud and I return in a moment. Tomorrow night, we've got the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, Jim Ingram on Thursday, exclusively on cleveland.com.
Your basement is damp, dirty, and not somewhere you want to spend time. Let Nature Stone Flooring transform your basement into a true extension of your home. Nature Stone's proprietary hydrostatic ports allow water to simply evaporate, so no mold or mildew. Plus, Nature Stone is backed by Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
Get Nature Stone installed in your home by the end of April and get up to half off. Schedule your free in-home estimate easily online today.
It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
All right, the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, now working with WTAM Radio. You can join us live from 6 until 7. And then archive us all day long, all week long, all month long, whatever you want to do. You're cordially invited to do that. 216-575-0403. It's time to read some. There are emails, but all that seems to come in is how come quickies?
It's a legendary part of your career. How's that make you feel?
Yeah. I have friends curing diseases, and I invented how come quickies. John Patrick comes in with his usual array. They're tremendous. I don't know if we can give him a 10. Mr. Gullible writes in, how come mountains aren't just funny, they're hilarious? How come turning vegan would be a big mistake?
Are those the ones that you're almost thinking of giving a 10 to?
I'm thinking. Cleveland Bill, this is, you got to be in my demographic for this one.
Well, do you think I'm not?
How come Tommy Sands and Dinah Shore never made a beach movie together? All right, here we go. John Patrick. Listen, Bud, I think I was close to a perfect 10 yesterday. Maybe Bud can put the pressure on him. Maybe Bud can put me over the top. How come when my wife said, you weren't listening to me, were you? I thought, that's a strange way to start a conversation. Oh, you're gonna put the note? Wait, we got one more. How come if the milk has been in the refrigerator for 3 weeks, is that a spoiler alert?
Can you read it?
9.9.
9.9.
Close.
9.9.
So, see, here's the thing. I think everybody knows I can't give it a 10. We can't give it a 10. We'll lose out the hilarity, the absolute riots that ensue for not having them. I'm afraid they will not send them in anymore.
Well, why would they, right?
Well, there's no reason to.
I mean,
it's like the ultimate game, the Super Bowl. Why do they play it next year?
In the movie Spinal Tap, they turned the volume all the way up to 11, but you can't do that here. You're limited to 10.
Was it who was it? Hollywood Henderson or Dwayne Thomas who said that about the Super Bowl? If it's the ultimate game, how come they play it next year?
Exactly, and that's how people would feel about this. Yeah. Why even try?
I don't want to see how come quickies go to the wayside just like that.
But that was a really strong from John Patrick. Very strong.
Excellent, excellent. All right, you got anything to cover about 2 minutes now that you're big time on WKYC.com? You know how to do that?
No, we talked today. Ben Axelrod and I do a podcast on Tuesdays, and shameless plug. And one of the things we did, we tried to do like a little throwback segment. We talked and looked back at the 2014 draft, five years ago.
Right.
And we all know that was infamous now for producing Justin Gilbert at number 8 and Johnny Manziel at number 22.
Should have been switched around. Manziel should have been 8.
Well, Ben's question to me was, which of the two was the bigger bust? And I think you would have to say Gilbert because of where he was picked. You know, it's a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I'd have to say Manziel because it's a quarter, but the franchise is supposed to be the franchise quarter.
So
they didn't get him to be a backup. They got him to be the starter immediately.
No, that's true. Well, not immediately.
No, but I mean, not more than a year.
Yeah. And we all know the fact that he not only didn't become that, but washed out completely and is still out of the league. Then again, so was Gilbert. The other thing that Ben brought up to try to the 2014 draft did produce Bitonio and Kirksey, by the way. But if you look at it league-wide, it also produced Odell Beckham Jr. And
it produced him without the Browns
taking him, but he's on the Browns now.
Right.
And Greg Robinson, who was...
Well, how are you putting those guys in the 14
I'm just saying that when you look at it and you say, how many players did the Browns get in the 2014 draft? You say, well, they got Kirksey and Bitonio.
5 minutes.
But now they also have Beckham and Robinson.
That is bogus.
I'm just saying it.
That's bogus.
What? When you look at it now, you go, hey, wow, look at that.
Did they lose anybody that has been terrific throughout the league? Did they have somebody in 14 and 15 that they lost?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. Like who?
Well, I'm trying to think.
Well, see, my case is closed. I accept your apology.
I would think if there was somebody who would just pop out at us.
No, I mean, Bitonio is obviously a very good pick. Kirksey was a pretty good pick. But those two guys, that's why this team has struggled for as long as it has in their first-round picks.
Those were key positions.
When they moved back from Sammy Watkins at number 4, they could have had, and they traded it to Buffalo. They got a number 1 and a number 4 the following year.
Right.
So
who did that turn out to be?
With Buffalo's pick in the first round, they took Justin Gilbert. We know what that was like. With the pick the next year, they took Cam Irving. And with the 4th-round pick, they took a guy whose name I'm sure I'll butcher, but it was Vince Mahle, M-A-E-H-L-E?
Mahle, I believe.
Mahle, the wide receiver.
Now, you're talking about who did you just say that they got? Irving. Well, by your logic, he turned out pretty good. He's starting for Kansas City.
He's still starting, yeah, but he wasn't very good here, was he?
No.
So, I know
take the good with the bad.
People feel that Sashi Brown had the right idea in trading a lot of picks trading down a lot to get more picks, and they certainly have made use of some of the
but here's what he should have done.
The capital that he brought.
Do what he did to get the money and get the cap space and all that stuff, then move aside and get a football guy to make the decision.
Well, he picked Myles Garrett.
Yes, he did.
Although
I could have done that.
That was the draft that the coaching staff, we believe, was pushing for Myles Garrett, and the front office was pushing for Trubisky. So would that have been a bad pick to take Trubisky?
No, but
now that you have Baker Mayfield, it's probably not
and
the
Myles
best.
Garrett, yeah.
But back then we didn't know that.
I just wonder if Trubisky would have been hurt by being the local guy coming in here to save the franchise.
Yeah, it's a really tough spot to be in, and I frankly think Baker Mayfield's going to be a better NFL quarterback than Trubisky. But
all right, although Trubisky showed promise.
He did.
All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks to Bud Shaw, who will be with us next Monday night, taking another lucrative time off.
It's not lucrative.
So it's not?
No.
Oh, all right, then we'll see you next Monday night. All right, that'll do it for us. Tomorrow night it'll be the D-Man Dennis Maniloff. It'll be Jim Ingram on Thursday. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.